You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
All right, good morning. This will be our Friday show, and I've got Hanson Hindenburg calling all the way from Baytown Tires. Tell me what's going on today besides trying to sell the world tires.
Well, by the looks out the window, we're probably going to sell a lot of wiper blades today, too.
That's what I told my wife. I said, how long is this rain supposed to last? She says, all day. I said, you're kidding me. She said, nope. I went, this sucks. I don't like rain. But wiper blades are very important, and I'm glad you brought that up. Would you say that just about 9 out of 10 cars that come into your shop need wiper blades, or would that be an exaggeration?
No, I think that's probably just about right. You know, the reality is, in the climate that we're in, 6 months is the average lifespan for the wiper blade, which seems short, but that's just the reality.
I try telling customers that, and they say, oh, well, your wipers are bad. Well, you just changed it the last time I did an oil change. I said, how long ago was that? And they said, 6 months ago. I said, well, you're not going to believe this, but that's about how long they last. Like you said, they last about 6 months. I believe it has to do with the environment. It's out in the sun. It's out in a hot environment. I shot a temperature gun the other day on where wiper blades were resting on a Cadillac. They had that little silver older model Cadillac, and it was 170 degrees that the rubber was sitting on. That's sitting out in the sun. That's how hot it had gotten. So it's amazing that wiper blades even last 6 months.
Well, and I've looked at some cars that, the washer fluid that some people like to use,
right,
the bug off or whatever, the brand name seems to be a little bit more corrosive to the rubber and the wiper blade as well.
I did not know that. I do know that no one ever cleans their wiper blades. I tell people, I suggest all the time, take your wiper blades, pull the arm off, pull it up, and take just a piece of paper towel and soap and water, Dawn dishwashing detergent, and just wipe the squeegee off like you would, if you were cleaning windows. And you'd be surprised how much better they will last and how much better they will clean.
And that's, sand and other debris gets on the windshield, and that's usually what eats up the edge of the blade as well. And
eating tires up too. That's what eats tires up too, is that sand on the road and the abrasiveness. And there's no difference between tires and wiper blades when it comes to, rubber wearing off. The leading edge of the wiper blade gets ground off or sanded off, wore off due to the abrasion on the windshield. And the same thing on tires. Now I'm going back to tires here because that's what you sell most of is tires. What is the biggest thing that wears tires out in your opinion? Prematurely. Tires wear out just by using them, but what's the most premature thing that causes tires to wear out?
Well, I think two things, and they're pretty simple, is lack of rotation and underinflation.
Yeah, how about overinflation? Because I have people all the time freak out when I put 40 pounds of air in their tires. I've never had 40 pounds of air in my tires. I go, okay, what do you think about that?
Overinflation is, unless you put 100 pounds of air in there, it's not going to ruin your tire at all.
Have you ever seen, I know you have, but how often do you see a tire wore out due to overinflation?
In the last 10 years, I can't even really remember one tire.
Okay. See, you're telling people the same thing I've told them, and they look at me like, how can that be? But you'll fill a tire up with 40 pounds of air today, and you'll check it in a month, and there'll be only 30 pounds of air in it.
And you're exactly right, and especially on, truck tires, where there should be between 60 and 80 pounds of air in there. And a lot of times we see they have 40 pounds of air in it. And it really makes a big difference on how the sidewall wears, especially. You get cracking and funky wear if you have a lot of weight on those tires and not enough air in them.
So lack of rotation, and by not rotating them, you get the wear patterns because the tires on that wheel constantly going up and down or turning or whatever, and it just happens to, it'll get a wear pattern. It's just the way things are.
And noise complaints are the number one complaint. On tires these days.
Now, so lack of rotation, lack of air pressure, and I would say probably the number 3 reason down there would probably be lack of front end parts being suspension parts being wore out, such as shocks, ball joints, tie rod ends, things like that. But shocks themselves can wear tires out prematurely.
And most people, especially we talked about this before, struts do have a tendency to degrade pretty quickly between 60 and 100,000 miles.
Yeah.
And most people are not excited about changing them out, but when we do, people go like, wow, this car drives completely differently again.
Talking about degrading, your pocketbook will degrade when you have to put struts on because it costs a lot of money. I mean, when you put the shocks, the struts on, they come with the springs and that's the way I like to do them. I mean, it's more expensive.
Well, when you do struts, people go like, well, why do you want to do the strut mounts and all the new hardware? Because that's what it needs. Just putting a new strut in there a lot of times does not just make the noise go away, because a lot of the noises and things like that come from the strut mount itself.
Yeah, and we have seen that people sit there and go, well, I'm just going to put struts on there. You put struts on it, and the car, yes, it does ride better because the struts are able to do their job, but you'll still get the rattle. You'll still get some rattles because the strut mounts are wore out. They're not designed to last any longer than the struts themselves, and it's best, in my opinion, if you can change the springs, the strut, the mounting bracket on the very top, all that, like I said, and that way you know it's going to last you another 75 to 100,000 miles, where if you don't do that, I would venture to say you probably won't get more than 10 to 15,000 miles before you start having problems again. And it's kind of a waste of money.
You see it, and then becomes systemic. The tires wear out faster. Your brakes have a tendency to wear differently. All those things start piling up.
Oh boy, isn't that truth? It's amazing how that happens. Now, so we know that low pressure, not rotating your tires, lack of alignment, lack of struts. Now, one of the things that I try to tell people is your front right tire will wear out faster than your left front tire. And they look at me kind of funny and go, why is that? And I said, because you will take a turn to the left a lot faster than you will take a turn to the right. And they go, huh? And it makes sense how the outside edge of the right tire sometimes will be scuffed off. Have you seen that in your experience over the years?
That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
There's realistically, you only have, and on top of that, you only really have one tire that's driving the whole car.
That's true.
Try to explain that, and we see it a lot on like Mustangs, where people get really heavy into going fast, and the right rear tire is the predominant tire for it always to wear, because that's where the traction is in the rear end. And people don't believe that. I said, which tire is worn out? The right rear, just like you said, the left front.
Right.
And it's an easy pick. If you haven't rotated your tires or taken care of it, it becomes pretty pronounced.
And it's kind of like my cousin Vinny, where Marissa Torme was talking about the Positrack rear end, where that's the vehicle that went over the curb has a Positrack independent suspension, because both the tires went over the curb correct and had rubber on the ground, burning rubber, where the limited slip differential, only one tire will spin, like you get stuck in mud. Only one tire will spin. The same thing, that's what you're talking about, where you only have one tire driving the car. And if you're a little bit of a lead foot on it, that tire is going to wear out real quick.
Exactly.
And that's what we see happening. Now, we've talked about tire wear. I talked about a Prius today, where I think they're a very dependable car, very low maintenance versus some other cars. It's really about the only thing you change on a Prius is tires and fluids. But alignments seem to be one of the things that they don't seem to hold. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because maybe the height of the car drops over a period of time. But even on my Prius, I've seen that where it seems like every year I get my alignment checked, and every year my alignment is off. Not by much, but it's off. What do you think the reason is that? Just the nature of the car, or just?
Well, and actually, I think it's the nature of the car, and also, the weight is kind of, because it does have batteries in it.
Yeah.
So the weight is kind of shifted around, in my opinion.
And maybe
so the car sits a little bit differently.
I think it just drops in height, because all cars, when they come from the factory and are brand spanking new, they're a certain height. But as time comes on, gravity takes its toll, and it starts making it sink. And it's not uncommon for a car to be a half inch to an inch lower after 4 or 5 years of age.
Oh, absolutely. We see it on trucks too. It's very common for them to drop quite a bit after you load it down with people and stuff from Lowe's and Home Depot. So
now, what happens? Now, here's what happens. What happens if you have a car or a truck that is dropped down? Is there any way to correct that, short of spending lots of money?
A lot of people like, for trucks, leveling kits, and I'm not a huge fan of leveling kits because it kind of throws the camber off. In a lot of trucks, there is no way to correct that.
That's true.
That to do it correctly. quickly. The tires have a tendency to wear more quickly.
And camber, in case you don't know what camber is out there, ladies and gentlemen, it's the in and out of the tire. The top of the tire, is it leaning towards the engine or is it leaning away from the engine? Is that a good way of saying that's what camber is?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, and caster, positive caster is the top of the tire. A kingpin inclination is towards the driver who's a positive person, and negative caster is away from the driver. And that's how I learned positive caster, negative caster, positive camber, negative camber. And of course, toe in is towed in or towed out, just like it sounds like.
And just like you said before, that camber actually is dynamic camber, because when you turn the wheel, the tire kind of shifts and leans into the curve.
It does.
So,
and it makes a difference on how the tires wear.
In alignment is very important. And when like we talked about the struts, if you're going to change out ball joints and things like that, I always recommend doing the entire bushings on the control arm, or because that's a huge effect on it overall as well.
Yeah, I have a lot of people say, they want to do this and want to cherry pick what they want to hear. I said, look, you're being penny wise right now, but you're being pound foolish, because another year or two, I'm going to have to do this work all over again. And I said, you're going to pay me a lot more labor because I got to do it over again. Why don't you just spend the extra $30, $40 and let's put it on now? And that way you don't have to worry about it, and you're going to be much happier. And those people that are in their right mind understand, and they do that. Those people that are in their right mind, I end up looking at them going, you're not going to be happy. And sure enough, 6 months later, they come back not happy, and I end up being married to this car. Now they want me to do it for free. And I say, did I not warn you? And they go, yeah, but I didn't understand. I went, okay.
Well, and if you do a good quality job and you put good quality parts in there and you have 90,000 miles on the vehicle, you can go another 90,000 miles without having an issue again.
Absolutely.
So it's a great investment.
It is, and it makes a big difference on your ride. And I tell people, shocks and struts are a safety item. They keep the tires on the road making contact. When your tires bounce, you don't have much control. You're not on control of the ground, and they'll bounce. But
I always tell people, go look on YouTube, and it has some great videos on there about when you hit the brakes and what happens if the tire is bouncing up and down because you don't have good struts on there.
Oh boy, that makes a big difference. We see a lot of these things you and I are talking about on the interstate. My wife and I just came back from down south. We saw cars with tires bouncing 3 or 4 inches up and down going down the road with their emergency flashers on going. Well, they got a broken shock on that one. You can tell that in an out-of-balance tire. That's an ugly-looking picture going down the road. But it does happen. But this can all be avoided by doing preventive maintenance, having your cars checked out on a regular basis. I recommend people having their cars checked by a professional at least once a year if they're a do-it-yourselfer. That way they can put it on a rack and have the car checked out. Hanson, anything you want to tell people? We got about another 30 seconds left before we have to go to a break.
Come see us. We have lots of tires. Usually a busy day for tires and wipers when it's raining outside.
Oh, isn't that the truth? All right, and your phone number, 873-8900.
Have a great day.
All right, y'all be good. Hey, this is James Morris along with Anna Marie Morris. We'll be back. I got Mark Sarlo calling in a little while. We're going to get him on here and for our Friday edition, and we're going to be talking about, I don't know what we're going to talk about. Mark always comes up with a bunch of different ideas sometimes. We will be right back. This is James Morris and Anna Marie Morris. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
James Auto Center, we fix it right,